What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Coming at you with another human optimization experience. Right now, we are about to head into spring, and shortly after, we will be enjoying summer. And in preparation for the summer season, in preparation for beach hot weather season, we are gonna discuss today the three things you need to do to get that beach body. But before we get started, and as per tradition on this channel, make sure to grab your favorite snack, your favorite bevy or cafe, and sit back and relax and enjoy the awesomeness heading your way. Now, for today, I've got myself some Ethiopian coffee with cardamom. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is get your diet in order. Now, depending on how much weight you are planning to lose and what kind of body composition you're going for, you're going to get some variations there. So let's assume that you want to get into a body composition that is very muscular but lean at the same time, and you also want to lose weight so you actually have that tight waist and flat stomach with abs. So your diet is going to look something along these lines. First of all, again, taking into consideration that perhaps you want to lose between half a pound to a pound a week, you are going to need to completely cut out sugars, okay, processed carbs, okay, and the reason for that is you want to reduce insulin spikes. Anytime you're getting an insulin spike, you're pretty much gonna end up putting on weight. So you want to reduce insulin spikes. So you're going to cut out sugar. You're going to cut out processed carbs. All right. You're going to want to increase your protein intake and your fat intake while keeping your complex carb intake to a minimum. So typically what you would do is you'd get about 50% of your macros from lean proteins, 30% from fat, and 20% from carbs. And generally speaking, when you're cutting, you're gonna wanna get most of your carbs from fruits, vegetables, and maybe every now and then a complex carb like a sweet potato or brown rice or whole wheat pasta. Okay, yes, you can still have pasta as long as it's coming from a complex carb source. The only thing you're going to have to be careful with is that pasta is calorie packed. Okay, so most likely you're going to have a very small quantity to fit within your macros. So for your diet, like I said, to lose the weight, you're going to have to go high protein, high fat, and low carb. Now, because you are cutting, your body does not make the distinction between fat and muscle tissue or even your bones. It pretty much cuts from everywhere. So the reason for the high protein intake at 50% of your macros is to preserve as much of your muscle mass as possible, even during the cut. This way, even if your cut is eating through some of your muscle, you're actually able to repair that loss and encourage your body to go to the fat. Okay. The other thing about your diet is that while you're doing that, you are going to have to go into caloric deficit. So let's say that your average daily caloric intake is 2,000 calories and you want to cut down your weight. So generally speaking, you're gonna want to take 500 calories out of your total calorie intake, which puts you at 1,500 calories a day. Now, there is a formula for that and there is a way to do it, but that's not the intended purpose of this upload. It's more of what you really need to do at a high level to shed off that weight. If you guys actually want me to get into the formula and how to go about it and what's a healthy way of doing it, leave me a comment below and I'll do a separate upload on that. But for your diet, just to reiterate, you're going to be in a caloric deficit. You're going to be in a high protein, high fat, low carb diet, cutting out sugars and simple carbs. And you're going to have a 50% protein, 50% of your macros coming from protein, 30% from fat, and 20% from carbs. Okay? You're going to want to increase your intake of water. Ideally, you're going to want to have approximately about a gallon of water a day at the most. All right? And the reason for that is, as you're cutting weight, water helps cleanse your system and detoxify, and it does help from a thermogenic standpoint with your weight loss. Anytime you're drinking water, especially if you drink cold water, before your body actually digests it, it has to warm it up, which is basically you expending calories. And again, especially towards the end when you're getting really lean, having a lot more water is going to be very helpful. Also, it helps with making sure that you don't cramp up, or basically helping with flushing out your kidney, especially with a high protein intake. Another thing to consider when it comes to the diet is basically how many meals you're going to have through the day. Okay, the two approaches you can do, especially as you get towards the end of your cut and your caloric intake is very low, is that you can break your meal up, well, your food intake up into multiple meals across the day. Or alternatively, you can just have one big meal through which you have all of your caloric intake. Okay, so it'll work either or. Generally speaking, multiple meals is something you do with building muscle. Okay, that's typically where it's used, but you can still do it during a cut. And generally speaking, if you're having just one meal through the day, it's basically to increase the period of time you're going without food, which leads us into another tool within your kit when it comes to dieting, which is intermittent fasting, in order to help with your caloric reduction as well as just burning calories, and to help with your dieting process. You can introduce on top of that intermittent fasting. So generally speaking, you want to fast for 16 hours and have a feeding window of 8 hours through which you have your caloric intake even while you're in a deficit. Okay, and what intermittent fasting does is it helps boost your weight loss, but it also activates autophagy within your body. So basically, as you are fasting, your body repairs itself. Okay, so that's the dieting component of getting your beach body. Next, we are going to talk about the resistance training component. All right, so there's two ways to go about this, especially the second way is going to be important as you head towards the end of the cut. So first of all is that you can do weightlifting where you are lifting really heavy weights for low reps. So let's say between 1 to 6 reps. What that will do is it is going to stimulate muscle growth, okay, and help preserve as much of your muscle mass as possible as you're cutting. The second approach, which sooner or later you're going to end up doing, is you're going to have to move towards lesser weights and higher reps. And that's going to be a function of you having less energy to work out from the caloric cut and the dieting, okay? And you're gonna have to do that regardless towards the end of the cut. And again, the idea is that you're trying to stimulate muscle growth or muscle maintenance by doing higher reps with lighter weights towards the end of the cut. Now, ideally, you want to push as heavy as possible, but like I said, it gets harder and harder towards the end of your cut to achieve that beach body, and you're just going to be very low in energy. You're going to be hungry all the time, and honestly, you're just going to lack mental focus from the low calorie intake and the low carb intake. All right. Last but not least is introducing cardio. Okay, you're going to need to do cardio to help shed off that extra weight. It's going to help along with your dieting and the resistance training. Now, there's different ways to do cardio. Generally speaking, the best cardio for you to do is a cardio you enjoy. Okay, so you can do running on a treadmill, or running outside, playing tennis, badminton, playing basketball, going for a walk or a hike or a ruck. Whatever activity you enjoy is the best activity to do when it comes to cardio. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is that when you do cardio, you want to be in a what's called a zone 2 state, meaning that you're getting a bit of a heartbeat elevation, but not too much to the extent that you can't carry a conversation as you're doing the cardio activity. So just slight heart elevation that allows you to carry a conversation. Now, the reason for that is when you're in this state, your body starts burning fat. If you go in excess of a zone 2 and you go into a zone 3, which basically you are mentally focused on what you're doing because it's straining and you can't have a conversation, you can actually enter a catabolic effect where your body is not just burning fat, but it's eating away at your muscle too. So the ideal cardio zone is a zone 2, and you want to be able to elevate your heart rate while carrying a conversation. That's typically the indicator of being in a zone 2 cardio. So far we've covered dieting. We've covered aspects of dieting, including macro percentages, intermittent fasting, being in a caloric deficit, cutting out simple carbs, focusing on a high protein, high fat, low carb diet. We've talked secondly about resistance training, where ideally you want to do heavy weights for reps between 1 to 6, and towards the end of your cut, reduce the weight and do higher reps, so let's say between 8 and 20. And last but not least, we talked about cardio, where you want to be in a zone 2 cardio, which is basically having an elevated heart rate that allows you to carry a conversation as you're doing the exercise without being mentally or physically strained. Now, a bonus point is supplementation, and supplementation always comes towards the end, and supplementation is not per se on its own a key focus. It's there to just give you that extra edge. If you have your diet, your weightlifting or resistance training, and your cardio on point, and you just want to give yourself that extra edge, then you invest in supplements, but they are not necessary. Now, I've done an upload on supplements that you can take on my channel, or some of the supplements that I've taken in the past. You can check these out, but just off of the top of my mind, some of the supplements you can take to help, not necessarily with fat burning, because there is no supplement that will burn fat, but supplements that help with carbohydrate and fat metabolism. You can take alpha lipoic acid, you can take L-carnitine. These are typically two supplements associated with cutting and weight loss. And with respect to other supplements that will help you maintain your hormonal balance, because as you cut weight, you will throw your hormones out of whack. So you can consider taking vitamin D3 with K2. You can consider taking boron, and boron will be very helpful actually towards the end of the cut, because it will help you free up some of your testosterone, so it can give you more energy. Also, for energy levels, you're going to want to make sure you take a good vitamin B. If you can combine that with vitamin B3 as well as NMN and TMG. That is going to help give you that extra cellular energy boost. And of course, do not forget, for thermogenic effect, for fat burning as well as energy, coffee. All right. Caffeine is your best friend when it comes to getting in shape and maintaining your energy levels. And yeah, you guys, this is really it for this upload. This is basically what you need to do to get Beachbody ready. The one thing I will say before I wrap this up is make sure that at a bare minimum, you give yourself 3 months, which is 90 days, to get a cut done. So that's the bare minimum where you can actually do it in a healthy, semi-healthy way, where you don't really stress your body, okay, and disrupt your daily routine. And ideally 6 months for that transformation. But given that we're coming up on summer very quickly, 3 months is fine, but make sure you give yourself that 3 months. And if you do not hit your target weight and body composition by the time summer is here and you're ready to go to the beach, do not stress it. Just make sure to put a little bit of effort and progression every day. It will still count, and sooner or later you're gonna get to that physique, even if it's a bit later in the summer. Like I always say, it's better to arrive late than never. Okay. All right, you guys. With that said, I'm gonna wrap it up here. As per usual, very much appreciate your time and attention, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.